students, and welcome in today's discussion. Okay, so for now, I will share screen to you. Okay, so today class, we will discuss our next topic in this course entitled Genre Forms, Text Features, and Structures. But before we will start, I will read a quote for you. Learning is not attained by chance. It must be sought for with ardor and attended to with diligence. That is according to Abigail Adams. Now, learning, the acquisition of knowledge and skill is essential in our journey, okay? As we pursue excellence and strive to be elite, learning is a requirement, okay? Kahit saan tayo pumunta, kailangan we have something in mind. With a growth mindset class, with an inner belief that we are going to be better today than yesterday, learning is simply what we do. Through our experiences, we observe and reflect. We intentionally adapt and adjust. We pivot and improve. We seek to build our skills. Today, be purposeful in creating opportunities for learning. Seek with diligence, new knowledge, and skills. So your journey requires growth, and growth is dependent on learning. Okay? Now the question is, what is a genre? So the term genre has been ordinarily regarded as a literary or artistic category. The main literary genres are prose, poetry, and drama. So the word genre derived from the French phrase genre, meaning kind or type. Now a genre is a category of literature identified by form, content, and style, okay? Genres allow literary critics and students to classify compositions within the larger canon of literature. Now, when we talk of prose, prose is writing that is similar to what? To everyday speech and language. Its form is based on sentences and paragraphs, okay? Now, it is composed of continuous lines of text. So prose encompasses any literary text which is not arranged in a poetic form. Put simply, prose is whatever is not poetry, okay? Prose includes novels, short stories, journals, letters, fiction, and non-fiction, among others. So this article is kind of prose, depending on what kind of example it may be. Next is we have forms of prose. So the main categories of prose are fiction and nonfiction. Now, when we talk of fiction, fiction is a prose narrative in which situations and characters are invented by the writer. Fiction allows the reader to explore new worlds, share the joys and sorrows of the characters, and learn from the invented experiences of others. Now, fiction presents a story that is invented and not literally true. The events depicted are told to us by a narrator, and it is not enacted or dramatized. So the most commonly encountered prose fiction is novel and short story. Okay, now nonfiction. So nonfiction presents factual information or expresses a viewpoint, okay? It includes biographies, autobiographies, and essays that deals with real people, places, things, and events. Now, writers of nonfiction keep in mind the following as they write: a topic or an idea to present, an objective or purpose for presenting the idea, and readers or audience. Now, when we talk of nonfiction, non-fictional prose, it could be any literary work that is based mainly on fact and not opinionated, okay? Hindi pwedeng gawa-gawa lang po si nonfiction. It should be based on facts. Next is we have poetry. Poetry consists of language that uses aesthetic and rhythmic qualities, okay? It is a strong musical quality in which the words are highly charged with meaning. It uses structural elements such as line, length, and stanzas. Now, poetry is a type of literature based on the interplay of words and rhythm. Now, it often employs rhyme and meter a set of rules governing the number and arrangement of syllables in each line. In poetry, words are strung together to form sounds, images, and ideas that might be too complex or abstract to describe directly. Now, we have actually forms of poetry. So, what are these? Number one, we have lyric poems, or highly musical verses that express the observations and feelings of a single speaker. Now, lyric comes from the Latin word lyricus, meaning of or for the lyre. These short poems were originally accompanied by music. Now, a lyric poem class is usually written in the first person. These short poems were originally accompanied by music. So in lyric poetry, the mood is melodic and um, emotional. The writer uses words that express his or her state of mind, perceptions, and feelings rather than tell a story. So yan yung lyric poems. So the best examples of lyric poetry come from Italian and English sonnets. Now let's take a look. Let's take a closer look. William Shakespeare. Okay, meron tayong example dito. So let's start with an English sonnet by none other than William Shakespeare. So here's his famous sonnet number 18. Okay, so shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a day. Sometime too hot the eye of heaven shines, and often is his gold complexion deemed, and every fair from fair sometime declines, by chance or nature's changing course untrimmed. Okay, so that is an example of lyric poems. Now let's move on to narrative poems. Narrative poems are poems that tell a story. From the word narrative, okay? It's somewhat narrating. They can be long or short, and then some narrative poems use and rhyme, and some do not. So we have here an example. The title is The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. Okay, so we have here weary at the end of at the end of the lines. We have there weary, lore, tapping, door, and more. Okay, so weary, wala siyang karime uh, doon sa last words, okay, ng lines. So weary, wala. Lore, we have door, and more, okay? And tapping also wala. So yan yung narrative poems. Some narrative poems use and rhymes. Meron tayong dyang lore, door, and more na magka-rhyme. And meron din tayo dyang hindi magka-rhyme. We have weary and lore. Now let's have ballad. Okay, ballads are song-like poems that tell a story, often dealing with adventure and romance. Now the ballad is one of the oldest poetic forms in English. The simplest way to think of a ballad is a song or poem that tells a story and is a bouncy rhythm and rhyme scheme. The stanzas of a typical ballad follow the rhyme scheme A, B, C, B. Okay, now it is an important form of folk poetry which was adapted for literary uses from the 16th century onwards. Now, the ballad stanza is usually a four-line stanza alternating tetrameter and trimester. Of the narrative poems, this is considered the shortest and the simplest, diba? It has a simple structure and tells of a single incident. There are also variations of ballads. We have love ballads, war ballads, and sea ballads, humorous, moral, and historical or mythical ballads. Okay, so in the early time, these referred to a song accompanying a dance. Now, we have an example here. Okay, so I mentioned earlier that the stanzas of a typical ballad follow the rhyme scheme ABCD. So ito yung rhyme scheme natin. We have there, oh, I forbid you maidens all, that wear gold in your hair to come or go by counter hoe, for young Tamlin is there. So we have there all, okay, that is for the A. We have A, B, C, D, okay? Hair, B. Counter hoe, C, kasi hindi sila magka-rhyme. As you can see, si all, hair, and counter hoe is hindi sila magka-rhyme. So that is why si all, that is, sinulat natin yung letter A, And then, sa next line, that wear gold in your hair, hindi pa rin magka-rhyme yung end words na all and hair. So, ano yung gagawin natin? So, we put the letter B, okay? Now, canter ho, hindi pa rin magka-rhyme si all, hair, and canter ho. So, we write letter C. For young Tamlin is there. There, wala siyang, or meron pala. Si there, meron siyang ka-rhyme, and yun si hair. So, as you can see, kapag magka-rhyme sila, ifa-follow natin yung letter. Okay? Ifa-follow natin yung letter kasi that will symbolize na magkatulad yung rhyme scheme nila. So we have there all for A, hair, B, canter, ho, C, and there we have letter B. So A, B, C, B. So yan yung rhyme scheme ng ballad na fina-follow natin. Okay? Next, we have epic. Epics are long narrative poems written in a dignified style that celebrate the adventures and achievements of one or more heroic figures of legend, history, or religion. Now, an epic is a long narrative poem that tells the story of heroic deeds, normally accomplished by more than human characters. Now, a character has to be large mentally and spiritually, large enough in order to be the subject of an epic poem. Now, when we talk of epics class, epic poems are the product of pre-literate societies or those in which reading and writing were uncommon. Now, writing might have been part of society, but not to the extent it is today. So we have examples of epics. So we have Adventures of Odysseus. Okay, if you are familiar with Greek mythology. And meron din tayong the Mahabharata, 350 BCE. Now, the Great Indian Epic is one of the longest pieces of literature of all time, itong the Mahabharata. But its exhausting length has not stopped it from being a pivotal literary text in the formation of Hindu identity. Therefore, stories were told orally, passed down from person to person, and embellished and changed as they traveled. So when we talk of epics, these are long narrative poems. It's all about exploits, okay? Exploits of the character or the main character in the story. Now we have free verse. Free verse is poetry not written in a regular rhythmical pattern or meter. Okay, now when we say meter, it is a unit of rhythm in poetry, the pattern of the beats. Okay, it is also called a foot. Each foot has a certain number of syllables in it, so usually 2 or 3 syllables. Now the difference in types of meter is which syllables are accented and which are not. So merong mga syllables na may stress, merong unstressed. Okay, now when we talk of rhyme class, the definition of a rhyme scheme is a specific pattern used in a poem that determines which lines rhyme. So yung sabi ko kanina, di ba? We will look at doon sa last words ng lines, okay? Doon sa poem. And then we will see, we will look into it kung may kapareha ba siyang rhyme doon, kung meron ba siyang magkatulad na rhyme at the end of the words doon sa lines na binabasa natin. So yan yung rhyme. Okay? Now, free verse is the name given to poetry that doesn't use any strict meter or rhyme scheme. Kasi nga free verse siya, wala tayong kailangan na i-follow na rhyme scheme, meter, or whatever. Because it has no set meter, poems written in free verse can have lines of any length from a single word to much longer. Now, free verse poems will have no set meter, yung sabi ko kanina, which is the rhythm of the words, no rhyme scheme, or any particular structure. Now, some poets would find this liberating, being able to whimsically change your mind, while others feel like they could not do a good job in that manner, okay? Now, according to Robert Frost, he commented that writing free verse was like playing tennis without a net. Okay? So yan yung sinabi ni Robert Frost with regard to the free verse. Now let's have sonnet. Okay, sonnets are a form of rhyming lyric poetry with 14 lines that follow an iambic pentameter rhyme scheme. Now the sonnet, which derived from the Italian word sonetto, meaning a little sound or song. So we have here an example of sonnet by William Shakespeare. So as you can see, we have 14 lines here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. So that is an example of a sonnet, a 14 line. Next, we have the haiku. Haiku is poetry not written in a regular rhythmical pattern or meter. A haiku is traditionally a Japanese poem consisting of 3 short lines that do not rhyme, okay? The origins of haiku poems can be traced back as far as the 9th century. Now, haiku, it is a way of looking at the physical world and seeing something deeper, okay? Like the very nature of existence. So it should leave the reader with a strong feeling or impression. So we have an example here from Matsubashu. So 1644 to 1694. So he is considered as the greatest haiku poet. An old silent pond, a frog jumps into the pond, splash, silence again. Okay, so that is an example of haiku. Next, we have limerick. Limerick is a nonsensical poem with a very specific structure. Many limericks were written by the British poet Edward Lear. It is such a special kind of poem in terms of structure and content that an example is needed, okay? Now, the first, second, and fifth lines must have 7 to 10 syllables, okay? While rhyming and having the same verbal rhythm. Now, the third and fourth line should only have 5 to 7 syllables. They too must rhyme with each other and have the same rhythm. So as you can see, we have an example here. So there was an old man with a beard who said, "It is just as I feared, 2 owls and a hen, 4 larks and a wren have all built their nests in my beard." So we have there the first, second, and fifth lines. Kahit i-count nyo yan, meron silang 8 syllables, di ba? So sa limerick, yung first, second, and fifth lines, kailangan meron silang 7 to 10 syllables. Pero yung first, second, and fifth line natin, meron silang tag-8 syllables. So tama yon. And doon sa third and fourth lines, meron tayo dyang 5 to 7 syllables, di ba? So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5. So we have 5 syllables doon sa third and fourth lines. Okay? So yan yung example ng limerick. Next is we have drama. Drama comes from the Greek word dran, which means to do or to act. Okay? So when we say drama, ina-acting talaga siya. Okay? So it is a story told in dialogue by performers before and audience. So merong performers, merong audience na nanonood. So it includes stage plays, television plays, radio plays, and even movies. So it is a story acted out, okay? Ina-act talaga siya. It shows people going through some eventful period of their lives, seriously and humorously. Now we have forms of drama. We have the comedy, farce, tragedy, melodrama, and historical drama. Okay, now when we talk of comedy class, comedy is a type of drama that is humorous and has a happy ending. Its tone is light and it mostly has a happy ending. So we have an example. Try to look that Much Ado About Nothing by William Shakespeare. Okay, comedy is the form of drama generally intended to be humorous or to amuse by inducing laughter. Okay, nakakatawa. Now the atmosphere is mirthful and light. And the materials are selected and managed primarily in order to interest and amuse us. Now, the comedy aims at correcting manners and refining human conduct. Okay, so yan yung comedy. Farce. Farce is a funny play for the theater based on ridiculous and unlikely situations and events. So it is a type of broad comedy. It depends less on a narrative storyline and more on physical humor, sight gags, and silly jokes. Okay, now farce, this is actually an exaggerated comedy. So it seeks to arouse mirth by laughable lines. Situations are too ridiculous to be true, and the characters seem to be caricatures and the motives undignified and absurd. Next, we have tragedy. Tragedy is a drama form in which The main character, often a person of dignified or heroic stature, suffers a downfall. So the downfall may result from outside forces or form a tragic flaw, a weakness within the character. Okay. Now, tragedy refers to a drama in which a heroic protagonist meets an unhappy or calamitous end, brought about by some fatal flaw of character, by circumstances outside his or her control, or simply by destiny. Now, just from the word tragedy, you can really assume that the ending will be sad, okay? Nakakalungkot. But there is more to be tragedy than a play with no happy ending. Now, you can tell if a play is a tragedy if it includes a protagonist with a tragic flow. What else? Circumstances that quickly get out of control and not in a funny way. Darker themes than a melodrama, such as human suffering, hatred, or poverty, features the downfall of a previously heroic or well-liked character and reaches a tragic catharsis. Now we also have melodrama. It is a drama form that is full of exciting events and in which the characters and emotions seem to be too exaggerated to be real. It is a work with exaggerated sensational events and characters. Now melodrama, it is highly emotional, focusing on exciting but over-the-top situations that are designed to encourage emotional responses in what? In the audience, okay? So we have strong characterization. It is not a feature of melodrama. Rather, characters are assigned stereotypical or simple roles, often in good versus evil situations. Okay. Now, the genre gave life to the widely used term melodramatic, used to describe something overly dramatic or emotional. Next, we have the historical drama. It is a play that takes place in the past and based on real events. In many of these plays, the characters are also based on real historical figures. So we have an example, Julius Caesar by William Shakespeare. Now, it is a drama about the life of Julius Caesar class, particularly focusing on his assassination by members of the Roman Senate. Okay, so yun na po yun. Now, we have also literary texts and informational texts. Now, texts have also been classified simply into literary text and informational text. Okay, so ano yan sila? Now, when we talk of literary text, this includes short stories, novels, poems, and dramas, biographies, autobiographies, and essays can also be considered literary text. Okay, now literary text written primarily to what? To entertain. Okay, so we have meron tayong tinatawag na literary fiction. It is a story about people, animals, or events that is made up by an author. Okay, so the characters, the people or animals in a story, and the setting, the time and place or when and where a story happens. Okay, now the plot, it is the sequence of events in a story including a problem and a solution. Kasi literary text, it's all about stories, novels. Okay, so sa stories, meron tayong character, plot, meron tayong elements of fiction na tinatawag. And the characteristics, it features or the qualities that help identify something. Okay, so yan yung literary text. Now, what is an informational text? It provides factual information. Consumer, public, and workplace documents are considered informational materials. Okay, so what are these? Now, when we talk of consumer documents class, these are printed materials that accompany products and services. Okay, they usually provide information about the use, the care, the operation, or assembly of the product or service they accompany. Applications, contracts, warranties, manuals, instructions, labels, brochures, and schedules are some forms of consumer documents. So tinatawag natin yun siya na consumer documents, yung mga nabanggit natin na examples. We also have public documents, or documents written for the public to provide information that is of public interest or concern. Now, government documents, speeches, signs, and rules and regulations are some forms of public documents. Now, these are those which are available to the public or sa atin. Okay? So, for example, we have the rules and regulations as of today, di ba? That is, we are experiencing COVID-19. So, meron tayong mga rules and regulations na kailangan nating i-follow. Okay? This is mandated by our government. That is to observe physical distancing, to wear mask or face shield, okay? And to wash our hands, okay? Wash our hands frequently. Okay, so those things, so those are some examples of public documents or rules and regulations that are mandated by the government for us, okay? For the public na kailangan nating i-follow. Next, we also have workplace documents. These are materials that are produced or used within a workplace, okay? Doon sa tinatrabahuan mo. Their purpose is to aid in the functioning of a business. Now, for example, employees must be able to understand text to do a job. Now, the workplace documents assessment measures skills that individuals use when they read real workplace documents and use that information to make job-related decisions and solve problems, okay? Now, the documents include messages, emails, letters, directions, signs, bulletins, policies, websites, contracts, and regulations, okay? So, yung workplace documents, nakadepende doon sa pinagtatrabahuan mo, okay? Yan po yun siya. Next, we also have textbooks. Textbooks are materials used in school. Their purpose is to educate people, okay? So that is why you have your books with you, okay? I presume you have your books with you. So please try to read them kasi marami kayong malalaman dyan sa libro na meron kayo ngayon, okay? So those are textbooks that will really aid you, okay? That is our avenue also in learning. We also have newspaper articles. So articles provide readers with timely news, opinions, and advertisements. Okay? So newspaper, usually, di ba, kapag morning, meron tayong mga newspapers na binabasa natin. Nandoon lahat. We have all about sports, about editorial. We have column writing. We have there also advertisements. Okay? So yun yung nakalagay usually sa mga newspaper articles. Okay? So yan lang po for today, and these are my references. Okay? Thank you for watching, class. I hope you learned something today. Bye!